Hey there, today's video brings a very special topic. Why is it so difficult to change or develop some habits? I bet you've already tried to acquire a habit that you think is important. It could be the habit of reading, or starting physical activity, or having a healthier diet. And you probably started out excited, and at some point, you gave up. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 factors that will certainly hinder you from making an effective change in these habits. But first, I want to start by talking about a belief, a way of thinking, which is probably the first thing that hinders you in this process. You probably overestimate decisive moments and underestimate small daily improvements. You notice that person who lost 15 kilos, or that person who wrote a book, or that person who saved $1 million. You already look at significant changes in people's lives, at those results that you also want to achieve, and often conclude that this is a long way off. Or when you set out to do something, your initial goal is very big, very far from being achieved. Many people disregard small changes. For example, a small improvement of 1% is really something unremarkable, and perhaps even imperceptible at first. However, let's think that habits are the compound interest of improvement. Habits are the compound interest of improvement. So what is the factor that will actually have a big impact on compound interest? The time. In fact, the passage of time. A change that at first seems very small, over time, can lead to a truly extraordinary, remarkable result. You know that 1% I mentioned? If you improve 1% every day, at the end of a year, you will be 37 times better. Much of this content I'm talking about here is from a book that I highly recommend reading, Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book has a story to illustrate this idea of how small improvements can lead to a big impact. It's the story of British cycling, which basically since 1908 has experienced a century of mediocrity. That is, in this entire period, it has only managed 1 medal at the Olympic Games and no medals in the Tour de France, which is a very important event for them in Europe. In 2003, a new coach was hired who brought exactly this philosophy that he called aggregation of marginal gains, which was the philosophy of looking for a small margin of improvement in absolutely everything he does. And what were the improvements? They made bicycles more comfortable in terms of design and anatomy. They added alcohol to the tires to improve grip. Athletes started to wear heated shorts under lycra shorts to maintain muscle temperature. They looked for lighter and more aerodynamic clothing. They tested different types of massage gel with the aim of improving muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach athletes how to improve self-care habits, such as washing their hands so that they would get less sick, less cold. They had changes to the mattress and pillow so that they could sleep better. And what was the result? 5 years later, the team dominated the Olympic Games. They took 60% of the gold medals and they raised the level of competition by achieving 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. Well then, everything I've told you so far is really about changing your mindset, so you can keep in mind that small improvements can lead to big results. With this in mind, we can then talk about the 3 factors that hinder you, and that if you manage to overcome them, you will probably be successful in changing your habits. But first, if you're enjoying this topic, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. The first of them is to focus only on the end result. The book will talk about an evolution that permeates 3 things. There is indeed the result, but there is also the process. And there is something even more important, the level of identity. The process is like routine, planning. If I want to lose 10 kilograms, what do I need to do that? The change of identity is when you start wanting to be the person who has already achieved that goal. Often people want to change because they want the result. She doesn't usually stop to think about changing her identity, changing her beliefs. So it ends up being painful because the focus is on the result, and that is not sustainable. The second factor then is to focus on processes. It is very important that you have clear, specific goals, but that you focus on the context, the environment that you will create to facilitate your engagement. Remember what I said at the beginning of the video, that we tend to overestimate decisive moments and underestimate small improvements. I will mention 2 aspects that he brings in the book: the stacking of habits and the adjustment of the environment. Habit stacking means you link the new habit, the one you want developed, with something you already do regularly in your routine. And adjusting the environment means you organize your environment. So if you want to read a book, for example, leave that book by your bedside in an easily accessible place that you know you will see easily. If you need to take medicine, leave it next to the water on the sink, or in the place you typically go every day, which is already an acquired habit. And the third is the latent potential plateau. I'm going to explain. Imagine you are in a cold room at -8 cells. You are sitting and notice the smoke coming out of your mouth. On the table in front of you, there is an ice cube, and in the background, you see a thermometer that shows the temperature of the room. Little by little, you see the temperature rise. It went to -5 cells. Then it rose again to -3 degrees. Even though you watch the thermometer and the temperature rise, you see the ice cube still intact in front of you. The temperature continues to rise. -2 gross, -1 dC, and the ice remains there, motionless. And now you see 0 degrees Celsius. Before long, the ice begins to melt, and a light layer of water begins to appear on the table. Changing habits goes through a similar process. For a long time we try hard as the temperature rises, but we don't see the ice melting, and therefore we give up. The latent potential plateau is precisely the point at which exciting and encouraging results begin to appear. This is when the ice begins to melt. But this result is not linear, as we normally imagine. The ice did not melt gradually as the temperature increased. It only started to melt when it reached 0 degrees Celsius, and from there it melted quickly. It's an exponential curve, and this time, when nothing changes, is what the author calls the valley of disillusionment, which is the difference between what we think will happen, quick result, and what actually happens. This means that you will spend a long time training a skill or making an effort to do it repeatedly, and only after a certain moment, latent potential, will you see the first results. Many times, because people don't have this clarity, they start out excited, don't see results, become demotivated, and give up. Remember, compound interest on improvement, the result comes in the long term. So understanding these habit formation processes, understanding that it is a construction, that you will remain in the valley of disillusionment for some time, that improvement is slow but continuous, can help you form new habits. I really hope this video was useful. If you liked it, leave a like here, so I know, send it to other people, and subscribe to the channel so you can always be notified of the next videos.